Many thanks for staying on the program. Welcome back. Now, information reaching Joy Business from highly placed sources within government indicates that the government has finally agreed to extend Ghana's program with the IMF. As to what influenced this decision, George Rafe has more.
Sources say the move has been influenced by fears that Ghana would not be able to meet most of the critical reforms before the end of the program next year, as well as the necessary assessment that should be carried out under the program. Joy Business is learning out of the 8 reviews that should be done before completion date, only 3 has been carried out, with just 11 months to go. We understand government is expected to officially communicate the extension move possibly ahead of the IMF board meeting in July, which is supposed to assess how far Ghana has fared under the program. It is, however, not clear for now whether government will settle on December 2018 as the completion date for March 2019. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta recently told Joy Business the program would only be extended if it is not able to meet all the set targets by the end of 2017. But the IMF country representative, Dr. Natalia Koliadina, has maintained the extension decision should be made at least a year before completion date. So why is this extension such a big deal? Well, for some it's the fact that the fund will be around a little longer than initially projected and possibly restrict some programs and policies the government wants to implement.
Away from that, economist Dr. Eric Esibe is saying he's not expecting any major policy shift as the governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, chairs for the first time the MPC meeting. The MPC meeting is to review the health of the economy. The last meeting in March, chaired by the past governor, Dr. Abdul Nashiru Isahaku, saw a reduction of the policy rate by 200 basis points, the biggest drop in the last 10 years. This brought the central bank's benchmark lending rate to 23.5%. Economist Dr. Eric Osesibe says he only expects the governor to focus on creating a balance between stability and growth.
But we in government and we in the ministry are looking for quality, affordable housing units. Not just the quality, but something affordable that an average can.
Sincere apologies for that mix-up there, and we'll bring you that story later in the course of the bulletin. Now, the country is likely to experience challenges with power supply in the next 3 months. This follows confirmation that the intermittent Jubilee shutdowns could continue till end of the year instead of next month. There's more in the following desk report.
The Group Chief Executive of Tallow, Paul McDad, during his recent visit to Ghana, confirmed reports that the brief shutdowns will now end by close of this year. He, however, promised they were working hard to complete works before the set scheduled date. The Tallow boss also hinted gas from the Trinidad in Rentome 10 oil field should come on stream from August to help minimize the expected challenge. But the problem here is that within these 2 months, if there is any shutdown, the country could be losing about 250 megawatts of power from the Ameri plant, which relies heavily on gas from the Atuabo gas processing plant, a development that could affect power supply in the country unless there is enough crude oil available, but that could come at a high cost to the country. The engineers working in the power sector have also told Joy Business that the brief changes in type of fuel for the power plants might not be safe for the infrastructure. However, the assurance from sources close to government and the power generating sector is that the country might have to turn to Ivory Coast for power supply or import enough crude oil to power the plants in the short term.
Moving on, the Ministry of Agriculture has been directed by Cabinet to sign an MOU with 3 other sector ministries as a way of committing government institutions to, as a matter of obligation, purchase foodstuffs solely from local farmers. The directive, which affects hospitals, schools, and other government institutions, is to prevent wastage of any excess yields from the implementation of the Planting for Food and Jobs program. Agric Minister Dr. Akuto Efriye tells Joy Business under the new arrangement, government institutions will only be allowed to import food if local producers indicate a lack of capacity to produce at any given time.
We are going to use the government procurement power. We are going to sign an MOU between us, the Ministry of Agriculture, and three ministries: Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Gender, so that we supply them with foodstuffs, that we have the first option of supplying them. It's only when we cannot supply that they can go and buy outside. So that we create a demand with government procurement power. We create the demand for the food that the farmers are producing. And that is the way forward that we see forward. And this is an innovation too. In the previous years, they've done it verbally and it has not happened. This time, the cabinet has agreed that we enter into these arrangements, documented arrangements, committing them to take from us all over the country. Rice, maize, whatever they need for their programs, for patients in hospitals, for students in universities and colleges, and so on, and also the school feeding program at the basic level, that we are the ones who are going to supply the foodstuffs.
Usually the complaint is about quality when it comes to rice, for example, and then the claim is that the rice that comes from outside is a lot more, it smells good, it tastes better.
It's all because the marketing infrastructure in this country is woefully inadequate. We need over 200,000 metric tons of capacity. We don't even have 100 in this country. So how can you store quality? How can you control quality? It's only when you have the physical infrastructure. I'm always using the case of, we have over 400,000 vehicles in this country. Have you ever heard of any vehicle owner constructing a road for his vehicle? No, it's government will construct, and we all use it, and they charge us for us. So we have to provide the infrastructure, which no government has done until now. We are facing that. We are determined to have adequate storage facility, and within that facility, we have machinery for cleaning, for milling, for all those things, for packaging. And then we do the certification of quality control. Just like the cocoa body is doing, we do the same for food crops.
This is live on the marketplace. Moving on, government has started engaging organized labor on minimum wage negotiations and the base pay for next year's budget. This is to ensure that government is not overtaken by events when preparing the 2018 budget. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta tells Joy Business productivity will be key in all these engagements.
I suspect that we'll be able to negotiate well with labor. Which will mean that we are not going to have any excessive increases. And also, as you saw, transport with the elimination of levies. And so even that went up by 15% after 2 or 3 years. So Ghanaians are also prepared to sacrifice once they realize that there is competence and integrity in what we are doing. And that is really our solemn, oath. That we will look after the public purse, and that we as a Ministry of Finance pledge to have a stable economy which people can operate in. At the same time, moving to ensure what we call the preferential option for the poor, that we don't leave anybody behind in what we are doing. And I think it's resonating. There's a certain comfort level, there's a certain, give them some more time, there's a certain sense that, well, they are performing so far. And so as long as we don't break faith, I think we'll continue to do well. And I suspect that by end of 2018, it will be a very, very different economy that we are talking about.
These negotiations that you are doing with labor to ensure that you are not taken up by any surprises, so you are fast-tracking these engagements on the wage issues for 2018 budget.
Yes, that's correct. It's good to do it early so that we all know where we are, and then we do that. Usually, so the April-May time is when we should sort this out, and so far discussions are going very well.
Uncle Ken, I thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. And let's continue to let the blacks.
Now, the 2017 Multi-TV Habitat Fair has been launched in Accra. The event saw several dealers in housing products converge to find out the best ways to make housing accessible to Ghanaians. Deputy Works and Housing Minister Frida Prempeh, who launched the fair, is calling on all stakeholders to partner government in bridging the 1.7 million housing deficit in Ghana.
But we in government and we in the ministry are looking for quality, affordable housing units. Not just the quality, but something affordable that an average Ghanaian can be able to acquire. The importance of our homes to us as individuals cannot be overemphasized. To many, it is more than just a roof over our heads and a place to live and rest. Our homes mean much more to us than just shelter. It is the center of the most important relationships that evolves in our lives. It is the place where we raise our families, receive our friends and our neighbors. Thus, having a home is a basic human right, which allows us to lead a happy and fulfilling life. Although the housing industry is growing into a vibrant one, it is also faced with a lot of challenges that makes home ownership very complex and an expensive venture for most of our citizens. The reasons for this state of affairs are not difficult to find. I can see a lot of beautiful high-rise pictures over there. But the question to ask yourself is how many of us can afford it? There are a lot of quality, nice, high-rise buildings all over the place as you drive around Roman Ridge, Cantonments, Labone, name it, looking for buyers. If you are not an expatriate, if you are coming from the developed country, how many of us can afford to buy or rent such high-quality housing units?
And that was the Deputy Minister, Frida Prempeh. Now, startups are generally faced with challenges at the early stages of business. One of such setbacks is funding. Although institutions such as banks and non-bank financials which serve the purpose of their services to Ghanaians require these financial institutions to make access to their services difficult for the SMEs. Speaking on the Business Leadership Show, the Executive Lounge, Vice Chairman of ABN Group, Rakesh Wahi, said there's a need for a paradigm shift to ensure faster development of SME businesses.
The area where there's a shortcoming is access to capital. That's an area where I think a better structure needs to be formed within the African economies. Right. Entrepreneurs don't get, they're not successful because they don't have the access to, and this is where the difference comes between developed countries and developing countries, that you don't have a well-structured venture capital business or, people who would come in and help you when you have an idea. So I think, and this is where as an entrepreneur, your journey is a very interesting one. When you set out, you don't have much to offer to anybody, because when you bring a business plan to somebody, everybody has a hockey stick kind of projection saying that, look, this is going to be the next Google or right. Great thing that you can think of. And you don't have a track record behind you, but you want to actually go from A to Z without actually the rest of the alphabets.
That's right.
Now, this journey is very important. It is about building credibility. And for entrepreneurs, I think the lesson I give to the younger generation is don't be in a hurry. Take your time building your credibility.
Now, local printers awarded contracts for the printing of textbooks for schools are lamenting the delay of 30% advance payments for work to begin. The shortlisted companies say they had to pre-finance the projects to be able to meet the various schools' deadline. They poured out their frustrations during a media tour of some of the selected printing houses with the Ghana Printers and Paper Converters Association to assess progress so far. The decision by government to award contracts for the printing of all core and elective textbooks locally for schools has been well received by selected local printers. Representatives of the Ghana Printers and Paper Converters Association took some media personnel on a tour of some printing houses to acquaint themselves with work done so far after the award of the contract.
There was a very strict and stringent criteria that was set, and people who went through the rigid process got selected. Indeed, there were 11 printing houses that got selected. Eventually, 8 of them are the ones who are executing the contract now. And for the 8, where we are with each of them is what we are doing now, and to also show that there has been tremendous success up to this point in the execution of the contracts by the printers. Indeed, as at the beginning of this year, none of the printers had been giving any money, and so printers had to mobilize funds on their own, had to try and make sure they got their raw materials and began printing. Indeed, they started without getting any mobilization from the then government, and so printers had to mobilize funds on their own, had to try and make sure they got their raw materials and began printing. Indeed, they started without getting any mobilization from the then government.
They say that the decision will create 1,400 additional jobs for the industry. They are promising to meet delivery deadlines and with value for money. Despite this, however, the selected printers are lamenting government's delay in paying the upfront 30% fee for the total cost. According to them, the work, which should have started late last year, began early this year because of the delay. Some of the companies had to pre-finance the project and are now finding it difficult to pay back their loans. Francis Nyenin is the general manager of printing house Back Press.
Contractually, we were supposed to be given a mobilization fee, maybe 30% mobilization fee, but that never came. So we had to pre-finance the project, and as you know, this contract is a huge contract. So pre-financing it was a challenge. We had to go and borrow with associated interest, and that's what we are going through now. Importing raw materials abroad involves that you have to pay through foreign exchange. And because there's instability of the cedi, it affected us. And the suppliers, though they will give you a supply line credit, you have to go and pay. Otherwise, your credibility is at stake. So you have to finance that one through your bankers, and that comes with interest. That's high cost of borrowing.
Later, the business development manager of JK and Investments Limited, Isaac Nanakum, also shared his experiences so far.
You know, it was a big contract, and we needed to get new people on board. So when they came, we needed to train them. We give them some short training, and they pick it up. And then apart from that, I think another issue has to do with the delivery. Okay. You know, when you finish, it's supposed to be sent to the various destinations. But we asked to hold on till they get approval from the Ministry of Education before it was sent to those areas. We were thinking that we're going to give at least 10% of the total contract for us to start the project. But that money never came.
Right. For now, 70% of the local textbooks have already been printed. Now, Uber is usually mistaken for a taxi company. However, the global brand is a technology company that thrives on a software operating system. Joy business reporter Kukwa Apia explores the future of the technology in the transport sector.
Ride-sharing companies are the new face of taxi services, and Uber is currently the most popular ride-sharing company in Accra. The technology company had an estimated income of $5.5 billion worldwide in 2016. Uber provides a platform for potential passengers to request transportation using the mobile application, which connects the passenger to drivers all over the city. You need to download the Uber application from the App Store, and with a click of a button, you request a car, and in the span of 2 to 15 minutes, one shows up at your location. There are over 1,400 Uber drivers in Accra alone. Joy Business spent a few hours with one of them, Henry Kwashi. Henry had been unemployed. That's why he decided to join Uber.
Well, you know, I was working with a certain oil company called Slumberjay, and I was a driver there. And due to the oil crunch down around the world, they decided to lay off some people, which I was included. So as I came home jobless, I decided that I needed another job. And somebody introduced me to Uber. In the early days of Uber, I was making 1,000 cedis a week.
The tech company's operations in Ghana have angered some taxi drivers who think that Uber is taking away their business. Joy Business spoke to the chairman of the Legon Taxi Drivers Association, Samuel Latte, about this.
For Uber taxis in Ghana, I don't think it's necessary. We are the one university have recognized granted to work on campus. Now, the Uber came in with that reform the university, and they are working day and night, and they have become a novice now in campus. For me to sit down and take over the work from the campus, no, it's not going on.
Transport consultant Cecil Gabra speaks about what the introduction of software companies like Uber could mean for traditional taxis.
In the near future, I think transportation must be much more convenient for every Ghanaian, must be cheaper wherever you want to go. You can easily call a taxi, and then the taxi must easily take you around than you going through much of any hassle. I don't understand the whole idea of a local taxi saying our business is getting destroyed. It's competition. Rebrand yourself. If you rebrand, you get into the competition with them.
Uber General Manager of Sub-Saharan Africa, Alon Litt, says Uber is all-inclusive and taxi drivers may join the service if they meet the standards set for all Uber drivers.
Uber is an open technology platform. It's not about Uber or taxi, it's about Uber and taxi. And we would love to engage, and we will continue to engage more with existing taxi operators. And there are a large number, or a growing number, of taxi operators who make use of Uber during their downtime. The requirements are the same. It would be a valid driver's license, the relevant insurance documents for commercial usage. It would be the roadworthiness certificate. There is a vehicle inspection in addition to that, and there needs to be a working aircon. So provided that there's that, on the driver's side, there's also a background check process with a psychometric test.
What do you...
And that's all in this afternoon's edition of The Marketplace. It's been exciting having you on board, and we hope to see you again next Monday with more business stories. Many thanks. My name is Emmanuel Apwachi. Good afternoon.